So here's the thing that no one wants you to know. Excellent service can save a bad meal, but an excellent meal can be ruined by bad service. We think it's time that the front of the house got the spotlight they deserve. Welcome to Dine and Dish, where the business of dining meets the art of hospitality. Well, hello, Krista.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Feeling much better. I'm actually alive and moving.
Which is good. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah. So a week ago, I had surgery, and I don't want to get into all the gory
Yeah.
details because it's not pretty, as my daughter would say, because I have drains. And she's like, "What are those hanging out of your body?" But well, let's talk 2 minutes about drains. So I had this surgery done 5 years ago, right after COVID. And Vivi was, I think she was 6 or 7 months old. And I had a capsulectomy. I had some repair to the breast muscle in the capsule. And they put mesh in, and I had these drains. And Vivi, I kept she was a baby. So, of course, everything looked like toys to her.
Of
And the
course.
first time I had this done, 24 hours after the surgery, she yanked the drain out of my body. Blood was shooting everywhere. It's midnight on a Saturday night, the day before Super Bowl. And here we are in Fort Lauderdale, and Gennaro and I were like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm holding my hand on the hole so there's no blood shooting out. And Gennaro's like, how do I get to the hospital? And I'm trying to Google it. And I'm like, I don't fucking know, drive. I'm like dying because there's blood shooting everywhere. And we're trying to figure out how to get there. And long story short, the doctor I had
Ooh.
was, did not have the best bedside manner or whatever. But here we are, fast forward 5 years later, I'm having the same surgery. I had a mammogram done, and the mammogram machine came down too hard on really close to the breastbone and tore all the mesh a year ago. And the entire scar tissue and the entire work that was done 5 years ago was ruined, and I had to have it done again.
Go back in. See, that's
So,
unfortunate too, because it's October, right? So it's Breast Cancer Awareness
yes,
Month. And so what we want to do, we don't want to scare women or men, by the way, from getting
exactly.
checked. But that's an unfortunate situation. And I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. But
So,
you sound really good, which I'm happy to hear.
yeah. So I feel much better. I'll feel
Yeah.
even much better when I stop having to carry around my little friends hanging out of my body.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
otherwise,
That'll be a
I'm
good
here,
day.
I'm up, I'm ready to go.
Oh, that's
And
good.
we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics in the restaurant
Mm.
business today.
Go ahead. Take it away.
So, every restaurateur dreads the reviews. They either love them or they hate them. We call
Mm.
them the good, bad, and the ugly in my company. But Yelp and Google can be your best friend or not your best friend. But before we get into that,
Mhm.
um, one thing that I think we should do at the beginning of every show. So we've been starting to get so many DMs and people reaching out to us, which is amazing. I mean, people I haven't heard from in years texting me saying, we love your show and asking questions. But we actually had Angie G reach out to us and request that we talk about why we got into the restaurant business and why we stay. So I thought before we get into like all these reviews, Krista, you and I can kind of start off the show by why we are in this crazy
Why
business.
we did this?
So yeah.
Sure. Happy
So
to
you
do
want to
it.
start?
Sure. Happy to. So I got into working in restaurants, I think like a lot of actors and artists do. It was, I would work at night so I could audition during the day. And so that's how I started it. But it was sort of, I think, in a way, always sort of in my peripheral. I remember when I was a little girl, my uncle, my grandfather's brother in South Philly, at one point, he owned South Philly Bar and Grill, which I think is still there today. And so I remember I have memories of being a very little girl and walking into the kitchen in the middle of service, like on a Saturday night, and like, Uncle Jay, what do you got going on? His name was Dominic, by the way, but we called him Jay. That's a whole other story for another day. And so, so that was always sort of in the periphery. I started working in restaurants in college, I think is where most people start working in restaurants. And then when I moved to New York, I booked a series of summer stock upstate New York, moved to the city afterwards. And I was like, okay, I have to pay my rent. What am I going to do? Worked in restaurants. And then it just so happened that as my career performing in musicals was ending. My career in restaurants was sort of increasing. And then that's when I really started working in the Michelin star and the private members clubs and all that. But it was sort of a means to an end because I was an actor, but then it just sort of turned into a really wonderful career. How about for you,
Okay.
Michelle?
So I didn't know you were an actor. That's very cool.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm a very lucky girl. I got to live out my dream and work with Stephen Sondheim and do one of his musicals and be in the recording room with him. It was really extraordinary. But then,
Okay, that's way cool. How come that doesn't surprise me at all?
ah, um, but what? How? What? Me being dramatic? Is that what you're
Right.
saying? How dare you? But yeah, so that was how I started it. And actually, some of my friends that I have today are still people that I either was on the boards with or people that I worked in restaurants with when I first started my career in New York.
Well, very cool.
Yeah. How
So,
about you? How did you get into the restaurant
so
industry?
my story is very different. My background was I worked for LA Weight Loss for many years as a regional vice president for them and opened up many stores. I was with them for almost 13 years and then got into the accounting world, and then met Gennaro. And my husband, Gennaro, owned the Monty Restaurant Development Group and Squisito and a lot of different full service restaurants. So
Mhm.
I married into the business. Actually, when our show comes out, our reality show, DeMeo Dynasty, actually, that's one of the things that comes up. And I'm always like, I married the restaurateur. I married into the business. So I didn't work in the restaurant business as a kid or a teenager. I worked in retail, but not the restaurants. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in the business now for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And him and I grew it from, a little private mom and pop company to what we are today with our franchise company. And my background of having the corporate side in the accounting world and growing LA Weight Loss from you know I think they had 79 stores when I started, and I think 2,200 when I left. Growing the business, it really helped my own business. And you know the passion and the inspiration and the challenges and everything that we face in our own business, it's just amazing that I get to do it with my husband in our business. So
Yeah.
there's just so many things. And everybody always says, why are you in this business? And I'm like, you know what, I think I'm a little crazy
Well,
first.
I think everybody's a little crazy who
I
works in
know, right?
restaurants. You kind of have to be, but there is something about hospitality that when you feel
Oh
like
my
you're
God,
actually
I
taking
love
care
it.
of people.
I
And I
love
think
it.
the hospitality mindset is not just applicable for restaurants. It can be really in any business because it goes to, like, if you're in corporate America, it goes to culture, which is what everyone loves to talk about in corporate
Yeah.
America. It's just, it's the vibe, it's the feeling, it's the energy, but it's also making people feel seen and heard and have a good time. And, you can, and we have both seen it on many, many occasions. You've turned someone's day around by your
Yeah.
hospitality. And that, I have to tell you, really makes it worth it.
Yeah. I
You're
really
making
do
a
love it.
human's day better.
I
Yeah.
I love it. Every restaurant we open, I work the door and I work the board and I go table to table, and it's just so motivating to hear people's stories. And you know, for the most part, when everything goes amazing, not like our last show when we talked about what could go wrong, but
Yeah. Well,
you know
that's a great segue to what we're talking about now today is
exactly. But
with
when it goes
reviews.
amazing, it's so motivating, and I love meeting people and talking to people and being on the floor. And so Angie, thank you for the shout out and for slipping into our DMs. And you know um, it is an industry that we love. But today's show, we're going to talk about Yelp and Google, and where these reviews and the word of mouth, and it could
And
either
social
make or break your
media.
business.
Yeah. All of it.
And it's being a restaurateur and working in the business is very different. I mean, when I first started Yelp, oh my god, I wanted to lose my mind. Everybody wanted to be a critic when it first really hit, and everybody
Hmm.
got onto Yelp. It was like the second they walk into the restaurant, I mean, everybody eats with their phone, so it's like the pictures start and the reviews start, and whether it's 1 star or 5 stars, and it was just, I used to lose my mind. And I used to have to walk out of the back. How you say, get in the walk in and cool yourself
Yeah.
down and
Oh my
scream. I
God. The
used to go
walk in
out
is
back and
the
like want
walk in is where
to
you
choke
go to
people.
cry, everyone. Remember.
Oh, oh my
So
goodness.
here's how I feel about all these reviews. Okay, so whether it's a Yelp review, whether it's Google or I'm going to leave social media out of this for a minute. So just really like Yelp reviews, Google reviews, or even on OpenTable. You really have to take them with a grain of salt, or even Reddit reviews. What I would say is when you are reading this, you have to use discernment. If you are reading them and you are seeing a thread, a trend where it is the same, perhaps, critique that is in all of the reviews, even though it might be stated very colorfully, we'll say, then I think that that has value, because if it is the same thing being said over and over, then I would say that that is more legitimate than somebody who's going in and just maybe had a bad experience, whether rightfully so or wrongly so.
Yeah.
And then they're just using that as a way to vent and try and get back and hurt you. You know what I mean? So just remember when you're reading these reviews to use that discernment, because, they can be a helpful tool, but some of those reviews are really just, you can tell people are just doing it for spite.
Yeah. Well, and you have to remember, we look at those. I mean, I look at every review. So whether it comes in, whether it's 1 star, 3 star, 5 star, I use it for training as well. So as a restaurateur, we look at it and we say, okay, this is great training for our staff. Let's take it back, give it to our managers, let the managers take it back and use it in training on the floor. But it's like you said, it's great feedback, because if it is something reoccurring, then hey, we got to fix it or make it better. Because, at the end of the day, we want people to have an amazing experience.
Of
But
course.
of course, the one thing we don't want to do is react. Everybody gets to see it, unless you're going to reach out to that guest privately and say, hey, what happened? And we reach out to every guest, whether it's good or bad. I mean, with our new restaurants that we just opened, Vivi's Chicken and Mac, every review that comes in, we give back gift cards and, thank you so much for the review. And this is not a bribe situation. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute, because I actually had a huge fight with Yelp years back about
Mm-hmm.
this. But, why can you, if a 1 star comes in, you can say, oh, well, we want to turn that around, reach out to us. We want to find out more. We'd love to give you a gift card to come back in, turn that experience around. But with a 5 star, you can't do it, because if you do it, then they're saying you're bribing them to give more 5 stars. I had a huge fight with Yelp, because
Well, that's
Yelp,
what's happening on social media right now. Like
yeah,
people, like I have people that reach out to in my DMs and like, hey, would you come to our restaurant and give us a review, and in exchange, do something on social media? And my response is always the same. I'm happy to come to your restaurant, but you have to understand, I will be honest. And if you're okay with me being honest,
right.
I'm happy to come in. And then inevitably the offer gets rescinded.
Yeah.
So, that's why you have to be, that's what I'm saying with your discernment, whether it is on TikTok, Instagram, or Yelp, Google, etc. You have to really pay attention to see if it's a legitimate gripe. And also most of the reviews, and this is what bothers me about reviews, they're always negative. Like no one
Yeah.
rarely ever writes, you know what, I had a great time. My server was awesome. My bartender was great. The entire staff was warm and welcoming. The food, like rarely do you see those reviews. It seems like people only go to Yelp, at least in the beginning. And
Yeah.
right now, I tend to
It's getting
not.
better. It's getting better.
Yeah. And it's just, and the social media ones are only glowing
Yeah.
with a few, except because they're getting a free dinner out of it to say something nice. So you can't really trust them either. And so you really have to weigh both sides of it. And just all of it honestly drives me crazy right now, because you don't know what's real and what's not.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to separate the true reviews, like the Googles, the Yelps, the feedback on the website when they reach out to the restaurant, and
Well, that's
the
different.
social media aspect, because social media is all about influencers. I get them all day long.
I
Do you
know.
want to collab here? Do you want to collab here? We'd love to do this. Come into the restaurant,
Literally just
collab,
said that.
collab,
Yes.
collab,
The
pay us.
exact thing. Yes.
So I agree with you. Those you have to be very careful. And, when we see them through Instagram or TikTok, those most people, and we're telling you, most people read them because those are paid for. Those are like the sponsored ads, whereas when you go to Yelp and you go to Google, those are not sponsored. Those are people really having an experience, whether it's good and bad. And I actually called Yelp, because this is probably about, and Steve will be my witness. I had a huge fight with them, because there was 5 star reviews coming in when we opened Tuscan Prime, but they were being hidden and removed. And I called Yelp. I'm like, why are you hiding my reviews? And they're like, well, it looks like there's too many of them all at one time. Are you paying people? I'm like, wait a second. You'll put 37 1 stars, but I got 10 5 stars and you're going to hide them because I got too many at one time.
Yep. This is
And they're
why I
like,
don't
well,
like
that's how
Yelp.
it works. And I'm like, well, I was like, okay, well, that is way screwed up. And that makes me want to drop your business because it doesn't matter whether it's 1, 3, or 5. If the guest is going in and it's their account, they should be able to put whatever review they want. And then they're like, oh, well, are you paying them? I'm like, I don't even know these people. What do you mean paying them? I had this huge fight with Yelp. I'm like, algorithms shouldn't dictate whether it's a 1 star or 5 star. It's my right to go in and say, hey, thank you so much for that 5 star review. We're so glad you had that amazing experience. Here's a $25 or $50 or $100 gift card. Come back and be our guest. It's okay to do it for a 1 star, but I can't do it for a 5 star.
Interesting. Yeah. See, this is why I'm not a fan of Yelp
Yeah.
at all. What I tend to do is if there's a restaurant that I'm interested in, I will go to their social media pages and then I will scroll through the comments.
Yeah.
And because people are vicious in the comments, like they don't hold back. And I will see again what the prevailing trend on the comments is. I agree with you about the influencers on social media. It's, like I said, somebody reached out to me and I was like, nope, I'm going to be honest. So I'm not going to be the person that you want to do this. But I don't like that Yelp can control but again, that's with all social media, right? TikTok can control the algorithm. Instagram, Meta controls the algorithm, and they can control what gets pumped out and what can't. So it's really challenging. I still think word of mouth is the best way to go in general. If that happens, if you have friends, hey, I ate at this restaurant, how was your experience? I still think that's the best way to go about it without it being taken over by any algorithms or any influencers or anything at all. But I know that's rare these days. But Yelp, I've never been a fan of. I prefer, if I have to pick one, I would prefer Google over Yelp. I know that Yelp you can make a longer post, you can add lots of photos.
Pictures.
Google's is more of a snapshot, which I like, because it's not so in the weeds. But I find them at least a little bit more reliable than the Yelp reviews.
Yeah. Yeah. Yelp is getting better. I think because restaurants are not using it as much, or they're using it more for an advertising tool, or for, like, let's say you want to get directions or you want to get to their website or you want to add a menu, they're using it more for a marketing database now than they are reviews, because I really think they pissed off a lot of restaurants.
Oh,
And
God, yeah.
we spent a lot of money. I mean, there was a time when, we would spend $2,000, $3,000 a month just to use Yelp because we wanted to control the dashboard. So, a lot of listeners that are listening to our show, they don't realize that, they're going on to Yelp, but Yelp is controlled by the restaurant business. So yes, you can put a review in, but the restaurant has the ability to control the dashboard of, what shows, what doesn't show. We can go in and take things down if it's not appropriate.
But
Google
that's if you
isn't.
pay for it, not if you're just a free user.
Exactly. If you're a free
Right.
user, no, then it's just.
Right. And so it's hard enough to make money in a restaurant as it is now. Now you're going to have
Mhm.
thousands of more dollars so you can control what people can see in regards to a review or not.
Well, but you have to sometimes, because some people, like you said, when we first started, it could be retaliatory. It could be an
Yeah.
employee. Listen to this story. I mean, we had an employee that got pissed off at us and started blowing up social media, like social media, Yelp,
Right.
Google. They did this. Half of this shit wasn't even accurate. But if I didn't have that dashboard where I was able to control all 15 of my restaurants at one time, where someone in my office can say, hey, that's not true, that's an old employee and we had to prove it, they would have left all that up and it affects your business. So,
Right. But that's what I'm talking about using discernment, right?
mhm,
You can read a review like that and you can tell it's a disgruntled employer. You can tell if you read that review and then you read like the next, 5 or 6 reviews, if nothing there matches. That's a
yeah,
review that I would completely dismiss and not put any sort of weight into,
yeah,
especially a disgruntled former employer. Those always stick out like a sore thumb. And so that's why comparatively, like if you were to read that and then the next few reviews, it doesn't add up. It sucks. And
yeah,
of course you would
yeah.
want it taken down, but I think people are smart enough when they're spending their money that they can see like, oh yeah, this isn't a real review.
So, when we first started and we were talking about reviews, I kept saying 5 stars. And it's funny because you had mentioned, well, they don't say 5 stars in the Michelin world. So,
No.
does, I guess, let's talk a little bit about that because in the Michelin world, when we say 5 stars in my world, because I'm not Michelin, obviously, I'm looking at Yelp, Google, a 5 star rating. In a Michelin world, there's no way. Because I mean, you're looking at stars as in Michelin stars. So, can you maybe
So
talk a little bit about that?
so I think this is something where you and I are never on the same page about. I
Hmm.
understand that I have worked in Michelin. I've also worked at an Olive Garden,
Yeah.
right? So um, service is service. So
Hmm.
that's number one. Number two, um, in regards to reviews or stars, it's not just in Michelin that we don't say 5 star. I've been doing this for 20 years. I
Uh-huh.
started working in a deli, a German deli in the mall in Jersey, and an Olive Garden, and then I moved to New York. I didn't
Uh-huh.
start, you can't just start working in Michelin star. You have to
Right.
have a lot of experience before they'll hire you a Michelin star. So there's a lot of other restaurants prior to that. At least in New York, we've never used the term 5 star because that term is associated with hotels,
Really
right? Yes, because
interesting.
right. So that's never referred to in restaurants. Restaurants, it's the highest you can get Michelin, I believe, is 3, and the highest New York Times is 4 stars. And so those are really, if we're going to do a star rating, that's what we go by. But I've never heard anybody in New York
Really?
use
See,
five
here
star.
we talk 5 star. Like, well, we even have friends that opened up a restaurant group where they actually call it 5 star. Just it's separating out, reviews versus Michelin stars. I guess it could get confusing, and I agree with you. Service is service, but I guess it's how you talk about the lingo and the marketing and
Well,
where you're
five
putting it
star
together. Yeah,
does
five
make it
star.
sound elite, right?
Yeah.
Like the top of the top. And so I
Hmm.
don't have a problem with that. But I'm just saying, if we're going to be technical about it, there is no 5 star in fine dining.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist. But that doesn't mean that, like, hey, you want to refer to it. Because again, I don't know how, maybe originally, but not so much these days. I don't think Yelp reviews really hold a
A lot of
ton
weight
of
anymore.
weight anymore. And
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I really don't, there's too many ways that you can get your information, right? Back when Yelp first started, Yelp was really the place to go to, right? Now you have the Google reviews, but now you also have, on Open Table, there's reviews that you
Hmm.
can go to Reddit, that yes, you can go to social media. And there are some things on social media that, again, you can tell are legitimate posts. And we're going to talk about one of them in the upcoming weeks because something just happened to somebody at a Michelin star restaurant, and the way they were treated, I think, is appalling. So much so that a different Michelin star reached out to her to apologize on behalf
Wow.
of that. And they aren't related in any way. Yeah, we'll talk about that in the coming weeks, but a little teaser for you. But I think that it just doesn't hold a lot of weight anymore. And I just don't ever see people referring to something by stars unless it's New York Times or Michelin.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
that's non-Michelin restaurants that I've worked in. Like they'll be like, I've worked in non-Michelin restaurants, but they got 3 stars in the New York Times. So they refer to themselves as a 3 star restaurant. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
but that's how it is in New York. I'm not, it could be like that. I know you're in a different state than I am. It could absolutely be the norm there. It's just not the
Yeah.
norm in New York.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, the one thing with these reviews, and I think I've calmed down through the years, I used to get them and I used to get so mad. Krista, they would come in the middle of the service and I'd be like, what the, where?
Yeah,
I'm
because
on
that's
the
your
rest, I'm
business.
here. Okay, this guest was at the table. They see me walking around. It goes back to what we talking about, identifying the needs and the service. We were right there. We could have fixed it. Why did you have to leave and then slam us? Like, I used to be like, what an
Right.
asshole. So it took me a lot because obviously you have the golden rule. You have to be professional. You have to be empathetic. You go through the whole thing. I wanted to get online and be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
You
I
wanted to
was just,
grab them by the
I
neck and
wanted to
shake
kill
them. Yeah.
them. But then I
Okay,
used
so
to have
this
to
brings
take
up a
deep
great
breaths.
point. Yeah, this brings up an excellent point for everybody listening. When you go to a restaurant, I'm going to keep saying this till the cows come home. When you go to a restaurant and things go wrong, please give the restaurant the opportunity to fix it.
They will. We want
Well,
to.
yes, they want to. 9 times out of 10, they will. Again, that story I just referenced, the Michelin, we'll get to it. But they really do want to fix it. Give them the opportunity. And then if they don't fix it or they don't meet the expectation or the challenge of whatever happened, then you know who you're dealing with. And then I think a, not so favorable review is fair, but give them the opportunity to
Or
fix it.
reach
Don't
out
walk
to,
out the door and then just take out your phone and go on a tirade when the manager was right there and you could have just had a chat.
yeah, or at least maybe reach out to the restaurant and maybe the manager wasn't there, or go above them. I mean, there's times where I've had some experiences, and the first thing I want to do is, you know, yell and, do the Yelp review and everything, but reach out to the restaurant first and say, "Hey, is there a manager? Where's the corporate office?"
I know,
I
but
mean,
the thing is, Michelle, that's not immediate. Do
yeah.
you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not in this day and age, we are all about immediacy. They can just pull out their phone, immediately go to
And they do
Instagram
it.
or TikTok or Twitter or X, excuse me, and they can just, or Yelp, whatever, and they can immediately boom the reviews and they're done in 2 minutes. It's immediate gratification. This is unfortunately the, age we
Yeah,
live in,
that's the world these
but
days.
they're
Everybody
not
wants to
going,
be a critic.
it's very few people in the restaurants I have managed, very few people will actually call and say, "Hey, I just want to talk to you about the experience I have." I loved when the people did do that,
Yeah.
but
We get them once in a while. I'll get
once
the
in a
emails.
while,
I had
yeah,
one last week. Vivi's just open. It's a brand new restaurant. It was like day 3, and everything's timed. I mean, this is a small restaurant, so we do, the chicken tenders and fries and grilled chicken. And I don't know if one of the pieces got out and it was a little raw. And before she went and took pictures and put it all over the internet, she sent an email and she said, "I just want to let you know, we love you guys. We've been to other restaurants you own, and we just wanted to make you aware so you can check your temperatures, your timers, blah, blah." I mean, it's all timed. So,
yeah,
of course we do our best to check it, but it was a mishap. It wasn't like we wanted to
it
poison her with
happens.
raw chicken, but she
Yeah,
could have gone all over Yelp and Google and said, "Look at this." And we were so thankful that, and again, we were so thankful that she did that because we were able to fix it. Our manager drove new meals out to her house. We gave her gift cards and we said, "Thank you so much. We're
yeah,
new." And she said, "We want you to be successful."
yeah.
We go to Yelp and Google, people are going to start talking about it. And then here's the flip side. We had one other problem at another restaurant. She went on Yelp, and the community went back and said, "Hey, give them a break. It happens." And even Steve said to me, "Well, wow, we don't even have to respond because the community is, going at her." And then she
For
went back
those
and
of you
said,
listening at home, Steve is our producer. We want
"Oh
to give him
yeah,
a
yes,
so
he's
everybody
in my
knows the
office."
players. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
I think it's great. I think it's wonderful when people have a little bit of grace. And listen, we're all going to have a bad experience at a restaurant. We just are. And I know we've said this in previous episodes. Allow them to fix it. And if they didn't meet the challenge, then you have every right to put them on blast. But don't just put people on blast just to be a dick. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, let us fix it. It's live theater. Stuff is going to go wrong every once in a while. It just is. And sometimes it's your night. Just talk to people, communicate. But like I said, right now it's the keyboard warriors, right? Everybody is so confident behind their little phones when they're texting away. That's where they're most confident. But when they're right in front of the server or the manager, they don't say anything and they would rather just leave and blast everybody on their phone. And it drives me crazy. Just communicate. We'll fix it. Let us
yeah,
fix it. And
yeah.
if we can't, then, God bless, go for it.
Well, and they can take it to the next level too. I mean, if there really is a concern besides just the review, I mean, a review doesn't do anything. It's not going to stop the restaurant. It might stop people from
Yeah.
going. But if you really have a concern about the restaurant, I mean, people have done it. They go to the health department. We've had a few people call the health department. I mean, frivolous,
Oh,
stupid
that's just
complaints.
nasty.
Oh my God.
That's just nasty.
Krista, this woman, I sometimes it's just people, they have it out for you.
Oh, it
Because
was a Karen or a Chad. It was one of the two.
It was definitely a Karen. I mean, this woman,
Yeah.
let me tell you something. We were not poisoning her. It was totally, and then the health department came in, did a full inspection, and literally sent me the report. I'm looking at the report, and it clearly states that they're doing everything they need to do. Every unit was on a timer. Every grill had thermometers. I mean, we take pride in a clean kitchen and we follow everything. I mean, obviously the health department, they
Yeah.
publish it in every newspaper,
Oh, yeah.
magazine. I
They
mean,
do in
we
New
don't
York too.
want our
Yeah.
name out there.
I have to tell you, I have to tell you a quick story about a clean kitchen. So at one point I worked for Chef Morimoto. His kitchen is the cleanest kitchen I have ever worked in my life. Now, again, I started working in restaurants when I was a teenager, when I was in college. It would be Saturday night, 8 p.m., a huge wait out the door, jam-packed to the rafters, 3 deep at the bar. The kitchen was spotless. I
Spotless.
have never seen anything, and I've worked in a lot of clean kitchens,
Mm-hmm.
nothing like this. This man, it was just, literally, you could eat off the floor. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but you
Yeah.
could. It was so clean at every single time from beginning to end. It didn't matter, because usually, you know this, by the end of service, no matter how clean and organized you are, by the time you get to 11 p.m.,
Oh yeah,
everybody
it hits
is
the floor.
trashed. And there's like gloves on the floor, a thing.
Yep.
Nope. Morimoto, it was spotless as if they had just opened and service just started. It was extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you know
he
what?
was something.
We love clean kitchens. We don't want any issues. I mean, we do everything that we can to train our people about pulling everything out, cleaning, scrubbing. And hey, that goes back to the episode on the bear. I know there was an episode where they were scrubbing on the floor, they were getting the cracks. I mean, I'll never forget that. I
That's every
laughed.
night. That's every
Yeah,
night when you close the kitchen. That's it's you
absolutely.
walk as especially when you're the closing server of the
Hmm.
restaurant or the closing manager,
All
you're
the
walking
side
through it.
work.
All the side work, every front of the house has side work, back of the house has side work, and the back of the house side work, because they are scrubbing down their station,
Absolutely.
top to bottom. And I do mean the very top of the range all the way down to the floor and under the low boys. I mean, everything spotless. Everything is relabeled. Quart containers and pint containers, as far as the eye can see.
Yeah.
Everything is new tape, labeled, everything. Yeah, but Morimoto was just woof. But yes,
Yeah.
that's the norm and how it should be. But
They're
those
not all
surprise
like that,
inspections,
but you
no,
would
they're
hope.
not. No, I mean, there's plenty of restaurants that get bad. I mean, there's a diner in my neighborhood that they've had grade pending hanging on their door for like months now, and I was like, I'm not going in there.
I
I
would
know
say,
how easy it is to get an
are they
A, even
still
though I think
busy?
it's a fucking scam. It is
Okay,
a
wait a minute.
scam, but
So
they're
they
still grade
hang it
pending.
on the door? Who
Oh, in
goes
New York,
there?
you have to. You
I know,
have
but
to.
who goes there? Would you walk in? I wouldn't walk in.
I would not, but also I worked in the industry, so I understand what it means. Like people who don't work in the industry are probably like, oh yeah, they're just waiting for their A. Do you know what I mean? Like nobody, I
Mm,
don't think anybody gives it a thought, but we're
yeah,
in the industry, like we know how easy it is to get an A. And so like
right,
if you have a B, that to me, that's just like, what did you do? Like
right.
that's just laziness. Um, but no, when it says grade pending and it's been grade pending for a long time, no, I will not go into the restaurant.
Yeah.
But
Why
again,
wouldn't they want to fix
that's
it?
me.
I wouldn't want that hanging on my door. That just is,
Well, I can't speak for your state, but I know in New York, I do call it a scam because I think it is one. And because I have been present on countless surprise inspections and they
mhm.
never check the same thing twice. And they'll be like, oh, so we'll fix whatever little instance,
And then they find something
and
else.
then they find something else. I'm like, but you were just here a couple weeks ago and you didn't see this. Now all of a sudden we didn't change anything there. Like it's just a way to get money. For those of you
Of
who don't know
course,
what the
they
health
do that in our
department,
state. We
no
love the health
matter
department.
no matter how many points you get, at least in New York, it's 1,000 per point. So even if you have an A, let's say that your straws weren't in a container that was sanitary or they weren't individually wrapped straws. Let's say that's 2 points off. That's
Yeah,
still 2,000 and you still get an A, but it's still $2,000
yeah,
that you have to pay the city. I mean, it's a scam.
yeah.
That's a
Well,
whole
I'm
other
gonna learn
episode, guys.
all the Jersey rules soon because we're expanding into New Jersey and we're doing a place in Hoboken. So I'm gonna start learning all the Jersey health department
God
tips and
bless you.
tricks soon. I know.
All right. I think we have beat a dead
Yes.
horse when it comes to this.
We do. But listen, everybody out there, we'd love to hear your funny stories or anything that you want to hear us talk about. DM us. You can do it through our podcast. You can do it through Krista personally or myself, but we definitely want to hear from you. We love to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
So far, I will say, Krista, we have 5 stars.
I mean, in your world, we have 5 stars. In my world, I will say
Hey,
that
I
we have
checked. We
4.
have 5 on Spotify. We have 5 on Google. I think on Apple Prime, we have 5. I mean,
Yeah,
we
you
do,
guys have been
we're
very
doing pretty good.
kind. You guys have been very kind in embracing our podcast. So thank you very
Yes.
much. We appreciate it.
Yes. But we love to hear from you. And I guess, Krista, until next time. And hopefully I won't be carrying around my friend anymore on my on my
Yes.
side.
Yes. Wishing your friend a very long goodbye.
Exactly on
Yes.
Monday.
On Monday, yeah. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye,
All right,
everyone.
I'll talk
Thanks
to
for
you soon. Bye,
listening.
everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.